Here is my best explanation of why it is that EFT works, and I plan on updating it and making it more thorough, probably just in the description as I learn more about it throughout the years. Your body is always sending biochemical signals to itself. It does this automatically to best navigate your environment throughout the day. When we think emotionally charged thoughts, our brains often send hormonal signals to change the behavior of our cells to fit the mood. But these moods can cross-pollinate, for lack of better terms, or at times not reach their destination. Since we can go from one stimulating thought to another so swiftly, this means there are residual signals that last longer in our bodies than the brain intended them to. Oftentimes, conglomerating in meridians, aka pressure points or nerve-ending clusters, one thing EFT does is physically aid the flow and reception of hormones and neurotransmitters. This is important because you don't want a stressed thought you had an hour ago be contributing to heightened cortisol levels. Because if your body has excessive stress hormones, it impairs the function of the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, which are functions that maintain health and support neurogenesis. More than stress relief, though, EFT is great for rebalancing the level of threat your body perceives regarding certain psychological ideas, even ideas that have changed your gene expression that stem from events that happened decades ago. Here's how. When you go through a traumatic event, whether petty or severe, your brain changes the way it operates in the future with the goal of protecting you from similar harms by upping your alertness to everything associated with that event. This often necessary adjustment can also be disadvantageous in day-to-day life. The amygdalas, two small parts of your brain, are responsible for assessing threats at all times. When it senses threat, it rings the alarms, so to speak, and mobilizes your adrenaline response to be ready to deal with the threat. This is beneficial and adaptive when you need stress hormones to help you get out of a dangerous situation, but maladaptive when there is no real danger. For example, if you were in a car accident while driving an apple pie to a friend's house, even though the smell of the pie wasn't a causal factor in the accident, the amygdala can misconstrue details like that, like the scent of the apple pie, with a threat of impending danger. Obviously, you don't want ramped up adrenaline every time you bake an apple pie for the rest of your life, due to the fact that it will make you on edge, irritable, generally distrusting of people around you, and impairing the parasympathetic functions. So we have to ask, why are the amygdalas so irrational? The amygdalas have a very important role. Since it's always scanning for danger, it needs to be able to shut off most of the function of the brain temporarily. When it encounters a dangerous situation, this feature makes sure that our actions are reflexive and honed. It's also part of the brain that must err on the side of caution, lest it be wrong and not warn your body when danger strikes. Unfortunately, this erring on the side of caution can be more akin to paranoia than caution, at least in many situations. But EFT can help correct this, and here's how. When you tap the meridians mentioned earlier, you stimulate your vagus nerve, which is what ultimately decides whether your body will function in relaxation or in vigilance. By tapping, you are guiding your body to see that you are safe in your environment, which will not only help to conclude the residual mixed signals mentioned earlier, but it will reduce your stress hormone levels to be more appropriate and regulated to the current environment. Now, add thoughts that trigger stress response. During this, you can consciously think about things that normally would cause the amygdalas to override your brain. So, With EFT, you get to hold highly charged subconscious thoughts with a clarity your stress response ordinarily does not have in those situations. And because you are engaging the amygdala with parts of your brain it normally doesn't operate with in times of stress, EFT promotes the growth of new neurons that can make new connections that integrate your frontal lobe with your limbic system with less intense pathways, meaning it allows conscious thoughts to mingle with subconscious thoughts. This allows us to be rationally observant with our instinctual reactions and primes our brain to be more capable of rationality in times of threat. Along these lines, another aspect to the effectiveness of EFT is what's known as pendulating in meditation. Pendulating is the process of addressing uncomfortable emotions and returning to the sensation of safety in doing this back and forth. This makes dealing with psychologically charged thoughts less overwhelming, because that negative charge, in quotes, doesn't get free range to spiral out of control as it might when otherwise triggered. Rather, the emotions we consider negative, often relating to our sympathetic nervous system, are allowed to be felt for a time before the meditator pendulates to what we consider positive emotions, or emotions present during parasympathetic function of the nervous system. So, if we take our earlier example, if I want to fully enjoy the scent of apple pie without it triggering a stress response, I would, either alone or with a safe person, talk about how afraid I was at the time of the car accident while tapping on the meridians. I would have a freshly baked apple pie on the table, and I would talk about my fears related to the injury, related to being caught off guard, related to the idea that dangerous things outside of my control can happen to me, and I would keep tapping and talking about the discomfort till it feels less damning and heavy. And once I feel that the air was lighter and that my muscles were more effortlessly relaxed, I would keep tapping, but shift my talking points to acknowledging the apple pie isn't dangerous. I'd be thanking my body for wanting to keep me safe, understanding and honoring that I want safety. I'd tell my body that I no longer want to have nightmares about car accidents, and that I will love myself even if I never fully heal. This would provide a conscious sense of safety and support, and would guide my physiology to strengthen neural pathways more beneficial to my day-to-day environments. I want to highlight that self-acceptance is a very powerful part of this process that should not be overlooked. The reason is, one of the first traumas we experience as children is the psychological notion that we need to be loved or accepted by our caregivers in order to be safe. And so one of the first things our amygdala sense as a threat to our survival is isolation. So we are primed to equate disapproval with danger and a need for stress hormones. This means when you, as an adult, acknowledge that you accept yourself and won't abandon yourself despite your flaws or wounds, you give your nervous system that sense of safety that comes with having loving caregivers. You let your brain and body know that you no longer need all of this stress because you're on your own team, and you will be there for you to nurture and protect yourself. To better understand the stress response and the rest response, look into the polyvagal theory. I suggest starting with Stephen Porges. To get a feel for when your nervous system's response is not aligned with the current situation, look into nervous system dysregulation. I suggest starting with Benjamin Fry. For understanding trauma as how your body changes as a result of experiences and not necessarily the experiences themselves, I suggest the works of Bessel van der Kolk and Gabor Mate. To explore how relationships can trigger dysregulation, look into insecure attachment styles. I suggest the work of Brianna McWilliam.